Enrico Fermi was born on September 29, 1901, in Rome, Italy. His father, Alberto Fermi, was a government railroad inspector, and his mother, Ida de Gattes, was a schoolteacher. From a young age, Enrico displayed a deep fascination with mathematics and physics. He often visited markets to buy old scientific books and mechanical parts to build small experiments at home. At age 14, Fermi lost his older brother Giulio, whose sudden death deeply affected him. To cope with his grief, he immersed himself in physics. Around this time, he discovered a book on physics written in Latin, which he studied in great detail, teaching himself concepts beyond his school level. His intellectual brilliance became evident to his teachers and classmates. By the time he entered secondary school, Enrico was already known as a genius in mathematics and science. His teachers encouraged him to pursue a career in theoretical physics, a rare path in Italy at that time. With remarkable determination and curiosity, the young Fermi began his journey toward becoming one of the greatest physicists of the 20th century. Immediately stood out. His professors were astonished by his ability to solve complex problems intuitively. During his university years, he conducted experiments on X-rays and electromagnetism while diving deeply into theoretical physics. Fermi's doctoral thesis, completed in 1922, focused on X-ray diffraction and marked his formal entry into the world of advanced physics. His logical, mathematical mind and experimental skills made him unique among his peers. After earning his doctorate, Fermi received a scholarship to study abroad in Germany with Max Born, one of the leading physicists of the time. There, he encountered quantum mechanics, a new and revolutionary branch of physics. This exposure transformed his thinking and inspired him to bring modern theoretical physics back to Italy, a country then lagging behind in scientific research. By the time he returned home, Fermi was already recognized as one of Italy's most promising young scientists, destined to reform Italian physics. Upon returning to Italy, Fermi took up teaching positions at the University of Florence and later at the University of Rome. His lectures were remarkably clear and logical, earning him the admiration of students and colleagues alike. During this period, he published several important papers on atomic structure and statistical mechanics. In 1926, Fermi introduced what became known as the Fermi-Dirac statistics, independently formulated alongside British physicist Paul Dirac. This revolutionary theory explained the behavior of particles now called fermions, electrons, protons, and neutrons, which cannot occupy the same quantum state. Fermi's discovery placed him among the elite physicists of Europe. His precise mathematical mind and elegant theoretical models helped bridge the gap between experimental and theoretical physics. By the mid-1920s, Fermi's reputation was established internationally. He was invited to lecture across Europe, and his writings were widely read. In Italy, he became a symbol of intellectual progress, inspiring a new generation of scientists to pursue modern physics. This marked the beginning of what would later be called the Rome School of Physics. In 1927, at just 26 years old, Enrico Fermi was appointed professor of theoretical physics at the University of Rome, the youngest person ever to hold such a position. Around him, he gathered a group of brilliant students and researchers, later known as the Via Panisperna Boys, named after the street where their laboratory was located. This team included notable physicists such as Edoardo Amaldi, Emilio Segri, Franco Rossetti, and Bruno Pontecorvo. Together, they created a vibrant research community that made Italy a center for modern physics. Fermi was not only a brilliant scientist, but also a patient teacher. He emphasized both theory and experimentation, insisting that physics could not advance without practical evidence. During this period, Fermi's group conducted studies on atomic and nuclear phenomena, laying the foundation for future breakthroughs. Under his leadership, the Rome Laboratory became internationally recognized. His ability to inspire young minds and his balanced approach between theory and experiment made Fermi one of the most respected figures in European science by the end of the 1930s. In the early 1930s, scientists were puzzled by the phenomenon of beta decay, a process in which an unstable atomic nucleus emits an electron. Fermi proposed a revolutionary explanation, He suggested that during beta decay, a neutron transforms into a proton while emitting an electron and an unseen particle he called the neutrino. This theory, published in 1934, became one of the cornerstones of nuclear physics. It introduced the concept of weak interactions, one of the four fundamental forces of nature. Although his theory was initially rejected by Nature magazine, it was soon recognized as groundbreaking. The beta decay theory not only explained radioactivity more completely, but also opened doors to understanding subatomic processes. Fermi's bold ideas demonstrated his deep insight into both the known and the unknown aspects of the universe. His model would later inspire generations of physicists to search for the neutrino, which was finally detected in 1956, confirming his genius. Building on his theoretical success, Fermi turned to experimental physics. He began bombarding elements with neutrons, discovering that these uncharged particles could penetrate atomic nuclei more easily than protons or alpha particles. Through these experiments, Fermi and his team created a range of new radioactive isotopes. They noticed that slowing down the neutrons with substances like paraffin made the reactions more effective, leading to the concept of slow neutrons. Unknowingly, Fermi's experiments brought him close to discovering nuclear fission, but he did not yet realize that bombarding uranium could split the atom. That final step would come later in Germany through Otto Hahn and Lise Meitner. Nevertheless, Fermi's neutron experiments earned him the 1938 Nobel Prize in Physics for his demonstrations of the existence of new radioactive elements produced by neutron irradiation. His work paved the way for nuclear energy and atomic research worldwide. When Fermi won the Nobel Prize in 1938, Italy was under Benito Mussolini's fascist regime, and new racial laws targeted Jews. Fermi's wife, Laura Capon, was Jewish, putting their family at great risk. During their trip to Stockholm to receive the prize, Fermi made a life-changing decision. He would not return to Italy. Instead, he and his family traveled directly to the United States, seeking freedom and safety. This move marked the beginning of a new chapter in Fermi's life. In America, he would apply his immense knowledge to a new purpose: the development of nuclear energy. His escape was both personal and intellectual. Italy lost one of its greatest minds, while the United States gained one of the key figures who would soon lead the world into the atomic age. Fermi arrived in New York City in early 1939 and accepted a position at Columbia University. Almost immediately, he began collaborating with American scientists studying nuclear reactions. That same year, the discovery of nuclear fission by Hahn and Meitner shocked the scientific community. Fermi realized the enormous potential and danger of splitting the atom. Working with colleagues like Leo Szilard and Eugene Wigner, Fermi began exploring the possibility of a chain reaction, where one fission could trigger another. These early studies laid the groundwork for both nuclear reactors and atomic bombs. Despite the tense global atmosphere, Fermi remained focused on science. His calm personality, sharp intellect, and practical approach made him a leader among the growing number of refugee physicists in America. He was about to take part in one of the most important scientific projects in human history, one that would forever change the course of the world. As World War II intensified, the U.S. government launched the Manhattan Project, a top-secret mission to build an atomic bomb before Nazi Germany could. Enrico Fermi was among its first and most critical recruits. In 1942, Fermi and his team moved to the University of Chicago to work on the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. He was chosen to lead the experimental team due to his unmatched expertise in both theory and experiment. On December 2, 1942, in a squash court beneath Stagg Field, Fermi achieved what many thought impossible: the world's first controlled nuclear chain reaction. This historic event, known as Chicago Pile 1, marked the dawn of the nuclear era. The moment Fermi calmly announced the reaction is self-sustaining, the world had entered a new age, one that combined the power of science with the immense responsibility of its consequences. Following the success of Chicago Pile 1, Fermi joined the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico. Though not directly involved in designing the bomb itself, he played a crucial role in testing, calculations, and safety. Fermi's expertise ensured the success of the Trinity test, the first atomic explosion, on July 16, 1945. When the bomb detonated, Fermi famously estimated its yield by dropping pieces of paper and measuring their displacement from the shockwave. While he recognized the monumental scientific achievement, Fermi also expressed deep concern about the destructive power of his work. After the war, he would advocate for international control of nuclear weapons. The atomic age had begun, and Enrico Fermi was one of its founding fathers. After World War II, Fermi accepted a position at the University of Chicago, where he founded the Institute for Nuclear Studies, now the Enrico Fermi Institute. He returned to teaching, mentoring a new generation of physicists. Fermi emphasized simplicity and clarity in both his lectures and his experiments. His students admired his ability to make complex ideas understandable. At the same time, he began reflecting deeply on the ethical implications of nuclear power. He joined committees advising the U.S. government on atomic policy, urging restraint and responsibility. Though he contributed to the development of nuclear weapons, Fermi believed that science should ultimately serve peace and progress. His thoughtful voice stood out in a world torn between technological advancement and moral uncertainty. In the early 1950s, Fermi shifted his focus from nuclear energy to high-energy particle physics, exploring the behavior of cosmic rays and subatomic particles. He proposed the Fermi theory of cosmic rays, suggesting that charged particles gain energy through repeated collisions with magnetic fields. This idea influenced later developments in astrophysics and particle acceleration. Fermi also contributed to early discussions of what would become quantum electrodynamics and the standard model of particle physics. Despite his fame, Fermi remained humble and approachable, preferring to be called the last man who knew everything, a nod to his mastery of both theoretical and experimental science. His final years were marked by intellectual brilliance and quiet dignity. Behind Enrico Fermi's towering intellect was a man of profound simplicity and discipline. Despite achieving global fame, he lived a modest, almost humble life. His days were structured, his thoughts precise, and his actions guided by quiet logic rather than emotion. He loved efficiency in everything, from how he organized his experiments to how he lived his life. Fermi married Laura Capon, a woman of intelligence and strong spirit, in 1928. She became his lifelong partner and supporter, sharing both his triumphs and his challenges. They had 2 children, Nella and Giulio, and together they built a close-knit family. Even while working on world-changing projects, Fermi always reserved time for his wife and children. He was known for his gentle humor and patient nature at home, often helping his children with their studies or engaging them in small scientific games. Among his colleagues, Fermi was admired not only for his brilliance, but also for his integrity and humility. He never sought personal glory and often gave credit to others before himself. Scientists who worked with him described him as clear as light and calm as a mountain. He had a passion for hiking, sailing, and simple outdoor pleasures, which allowed him to think freely and unwind. Fermi also enjoyed teaching, believing that science should be shared with clarity and honesty. Even when discussing complex topics like atomic energy or quantum theory, he used simple language, making the most difficult ideas understandable. His personality was a perfect reflection of his science, balanced, disciplined, and deeply human. To his students and friends, Enrico Fermi was not just a genius. He was an ideal example of how intelligence, humility, and morality could exist in harmony. By the early 1950s, Enrico Fermi had become one of the most respected scientists in the world. Yet, behind his calm and focused demeanor, his health began to decline. In 1954, doctors diagnosed him with stomach cancer, a disease that would soon claim his life. But even as his body weakened, his mind remained sharp and unstoppable. Fermi continued teaching at the University of Chicago until he physically couldn't stand in front of a classroom anymore. His students recalled how, despite his illness, he would still walk slowly to the blackboard, write an equation, and explain it with the same clarity and passion as always. He refused pity, facing his condition with reason and courage, the same traits that defined his entire life. In his final months, Fermi worked on several papers, including research on cosmic rays and neutron behavior. When pain overtook him, he calmly discussed ideas from his bed, still curious, still questioning. He told a colleague, "Whatever nature has in store for me, I will face it as I faced everything else, with curiosity." On November 28, 1954, Enrico Fermi passed away peacefully in Chicago at the age of 53. His death left a deep silence in the scientific community. The world had lost not just a Nobel laureate, but one of its purest thinkers, a man who had unlocked the atom and illuminated the universe. In recognition of his legacy, the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, Fermilab, and the Fermion particle were named in his honor. His name became eternal, engraved not only in textbooks, but in the foundation of modern physics itself. Enrico Fermi's final chapter was not an end. It was the beginning of a scientific legacy that would never fade. Enrico Fermi's legacy stands as one of the most profound in the history of modern science. His work reshaped our understanding of the universe, altering the course of physics, technology, and human civilization. After his death in 1954, the impact of his discoveries only grew stronger. Fermi was not merely a scientist, he was a bridge between classical physics and the nuclear age, between the known world and the realm of the invisible. His contributions spanned multiple fields: nuclear physics, quantum theory, statistical mechanics, particle physics, and astrophysics. Few scientists in history have influenced so many branches of knowledge with such clarity and precision. The development of the nuclear reactor, the understanding of beta decay, the creation of Fermi, Dirac statistics, and his work on subatomic particles all carry his unmistakable imprint. To honor his achievements, institutions around the world bear his name. The Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, Fermilab, became a global center for particle research, symbolizing his spirit of discovery. The subatomic particles governed by his statistical laws came to be known as fermions, forever linking his name to the building blocks of matter. Even in cosmology, the famous Fermi paradox, questioning the absence of extraterrestrial life, shows how his thinking extended far beyond the laboratory. Yet, Fermi's legacy is not defined only by scientific brilliance. He left behind a moral lesson that power without responsibility is dangerous. Having witnessed the birth of nuclear weapons, he became an advocate for global cooperation, urging nations to use science for progress rather than destruction. Today, Enrico Fermi is remembered as one of the last great universal physicists, a man who mastered theory and experiment alike. His work continues to inspire students, scientists, and thinkers worldwide. Through every particle accelerator, every nuclear reactor, and every equation bearing his name, Fermi's legacy